Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some very interesting Talmudic conversations and Talmudic discussions. And through learning about these debates and these discussions, we will hopefully gain a certain perspective, a new perspective on understanding people better and appreciating them more. So even people who are close to you, maybe especially people who are close to you, to get to know them better, to appreciate them better, to understand them better. So it's definitely a good thing at any time. So we're going to look at a few different conversations, but all of the conversations are going to be between the same two people. Their names are two very great sages. Their names are Shammai and Hillel. They're such great sages that they're not even called rabbi. So the traditionally, the different titles. You have rabbis, different type of rabbis, different kind of titles. But we've mentioned this before in the past, that sometimes rabbis are so great that they just go by a first name basis because the title wouldn't be enough for them. So this is Shammai and Hillel. They lived in the time of the Mishnah, the era of the Mishnah, which was about 2,000 years ago. Now, even after they passed away, all of their discussions are recorded in the Mishnah. But even after they passed away, they had these both of them had these very famous academies, and it was called the House of Shammai and the House of Hillel, and they continued in the path and in the way and in the direction that the head of the house, either Shammai or Hillel, taught them, and many new things were recorded from the house of Shammai, from the house of Hillel, even after they passed away. So these Shammai and Hillel are quite famous, and also their houses of study, their academies are quite famous as well. So this is going to be about Shammai and Hillel, all of the conversations that we talk about today, and also their schools of thought, the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. So the first, I took these three, I prepared three small discussions from the Talmud. I put them on a document. So if you would like, they're quite short, but if you would like to follow along in the text, we'll read it in English. We have it available on the website. So if you'd like to take a look, it's at jewishiceland.com/download, jewishiceland.com/download. So if you're not able to get to it, it's okay. I'm going to read it out loud for everyone to hear, and it's quite short. So the first piece of text that we're going to read is from the book in the Talmud called Ketubot, and it is page 17a. So it's text number 1 on your page, and it is about a bride at her wedding. And this is what it says. The sages taught, how does one dance before the bride? What does one recite while dancing at her wedding? Before we do this, I just want to take a second. If you have a pen and paper with you, why don't you take the pen for a moment, think of someone, think of a friend or a family member, somebody who you like, or somebody who you don't like, and jot down, if you could, some compliment that you could think about them or that you would say to them. So just jot it down on a piece of paper, some type of phrase, some type of compliment that you could say. I'm not going to ask you to read it out loud, so don't worry. And just hold on to the paper and we'll look back at it a little bit later. I think it'll be interesting to see. So we'll just give a few seconds for that. Think of somebody who you could write some compliment or praise about. Keep it on the side. Okay, back to the Talmud. We're going to see what the sages talked about How does one dance before the bride? So what does one recite while dancing at her wedding? So Beit Shammai says, that means the house of Shammai says, one recites praise of the bride as she is, meaning to say, emphasizing her good qualities. And the house of Hillel say, one recites a gracious and beautiful bride. The house of Shammai said to the house of Hillel, in a case where the bride was limp or blind, does one say with regard to her a gracious and beautiful bride? But the Torah states, distance yourself from a false matter, from saying something false. The house of Hillel said to the house of Shammai, according to your statement, with regard to one who acquired an inferior acquisition from the market, should another praise it and enhance its value in his eyes, or condemn it and diminish its value in his eyes? You must say that he should praise it and enhance its value in his eyes, and refrain from causing him anguish. Okay, so just to paraphrase, how do you praise a bride? So the house of Shammai says, you just praise her according to her qualities. The house of Hillel says, everybody gets the same praise. You say a gracious and beautiful bride. So house of Shammai doesn't understand what if the bride is not beautiful? What if she's not gracious? What if she's limp, blind, and so on? And so the house of Hillel says, just like you should make someone feel good about something that they bought, so in the same way, you should, even if you think that it's not a great purchase, in the same way, you should give praise regardless. Okay, so who do you agree with? Do you agree with the house of Shammai, or do you agree with the house of Hillel? I'd like to hear from you, so feel free to unmute yourselves. I'd like to hear your opinion. Who do you agree with and why, if you'd like to share? Anyone?
When a child thinks about his mother, it doesn't matter whatever she looks like, she's the most beautiful person in the world if it's a loving mother. I think if we can be in touch with the person inside, then and that her husband should be able to recognize that. Then he'd be honest if he just said she's the most beautiful and gracious woman.
Okay.
But regardless of what limp or blind or whatever.
So you agree with the house of Hillel, it sounds like.
Except that it's just not a perfunctory type of thing. It's a real thing, if we really understand.
Anyone else? Anyone agree with Shammai, with the house of Shammai? Or anyone want to say anything else?
I've been in the business of enhancing people. I mean, as an educator for over 40 years. So you learn very quickly to hone in on someone's positive skills. If somebody can't read, you don't take out, an 8th grade text and say, go ahead, give this a shot. And I think that you play to someone's strengths. And since beauty isn't part of the soul, beauty is skin deep. Beauty doesn't tell what's in somebody's heart or in somebody's mind. So I think I agree with Hillel. I can't agree with the other side.
Okay, but you were saying in the beginning, that you should give people, give a student what they're something according to their qualities.
Because I'm in the business of keeping a kid's self-esteem going. So, and I think that's to hurt somebody based on beauty or things that are subjective is hard. Being a teacher, you have to always ask kids to do things that are difficult. When you teach somebody bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, the Hebrew for them is, a foreign tongue. And so you have to, you sort of meet them where they are and then carry them with you. So.
Right. Okay. Very good. So It looks like whoever gave an opinion agrees with the house of Hillel. And I like the explanations. And some of what we're going to talk about is very similar to what some of what we're hearing now. So very good. So Shammai, let's talk about the house of Shammai first. He talks about praising a bride, and I think we could learn from this, for anyone when it comes to praising or complimenting anyone. So what's important to Shammai is that we praise someone and compliment someone according to their qualities. And so in this case, the bride, it should be according to her beauty, according to her qualities, and whatever else they might be talking about or referring to. So if your friend gets just a 65 on their math exam, don't call them a math wizard, because that's, you're not really helping them, and they're probably not going to feel very good because they know that it's not the truth. So what Shammai is basically saying is give honest praise. Give honest praise. So say something that the person will actually appreciate because they know that it's true. They know that you mean it, and it resonates with them. So it makes them feel good. So that's a pretty fair thing to say. Compliment someone according to their qualities. So you see something, you can say it. So, but don't say beautiful if you don't think that the person is beautiful. Don't say they're smart if you don't think they're smart. Compliment what you see and what's clear and what's obvious. So that's what the house of Hillel. That's their position. I'm sorry, the house of Shammai. Okay, I'm confusing the names already. That's not good. The house of Shammai says that we need to compliment people and praise people according to their qualities. So if a quality is obvious, if they're pretty, if they're smart, if they're talented, if their quality of theirs is obvious, then you should go ahead and say it. But don't say something that's untrue. Say something that will actually make the person feel good. Now, Hillel said something else. The house of Hillel said that you should praise every bride and tell all of them that they are beautiful and gracious. So what's going on over here? How could Hillel disagree with Shammai? Shammai said, give honest praise. How could you argue with that? It makes sense to give honest praise. You want the person to feel good. You don't want them to feel like you're just saying it. You want them to feel like you mean it. So the answer is, Hillel's position is, I think, very similar to what Paul and Susan were saying, was that according to Hillel, it's not proper to judge a person by your first impression of them. Okay, so just because it looks to you when you look superficially or when you look quickly, it looks like it looks like this situation. That's not enough to make a judgment, and according to that to give words of praise or words or to give compliments. What Hillel says is that instead you should look deeper into the person and find the beauty. So I think both Paul and Susan were saying the same thing, that it's up to you to find the beauty that the person has, and everyone has beauty. It's up to you to find it, but everyone has it. And surely her husband, the one who married her, finds her to be gracious and beautiful. Otherwise, he wouldn't marry her, right? So it must be that she is beautiful. So what is Hillel saying? Hillel is not suggesting that you should say something that's not true. It's not saying that you should lie. What he's saying is that you should try to see the husband's perspective. You should try to give a deeper look and a better look, and not such a superficial look, and find that beauty that she surely has. And this obviously is not only about a bride, but when it comes to relating to anyone, this is this is probably what Hillel would say, that you should look deeper into who the person is, explore the person. Don't just look at them quickly and rely on your first impression of them. And what's interesting is it might not have been a very clear what the Talmud was saying about someone who buys something in the marketplace and you don't think it's good, but what should you say to them, right? The Talmud said that the House of Hillel was saying that someone buys something to make them feel good about their purchase, right? If you look at the text, it says something. It uses a very interesting language. It says, I'll just read it again. You must say that he should praise it and enhance its value in his eyes. In his eyes. So basically, what Hillel means to say, what the House of Hillel means to say, is that you should try to see it from his point of view. So yes, you might think that he got a bad deal, or you might think that he bought something that is not valuable. But you should try to look through his glasses, try to understand why this is valuable to him, why he appreciates this, and why he's willing to pay this money for this item that he bought. And the same thing is when you're complimenting this bride. So look at what were the words? Praise in his eyes. So praise it in his eyes. So the same thing is with the bride. So she has beauty. You might not see it, or in case you don't see it, you should remember that someone does see it. So try to look through his lenses, and try to look through that perspective and find the inner beauty. So again, the House of Hillel is not saying to say something untrue. Don't just say something if you don't mean it. But what you should do is, on the contrary, it's not about a lie. On the contrary, it's about being more patient. It's about taking a more patient look, a more careful look, getting to know the person on a deeper level, getting to know them on a better level, their abilities, their qualities, and their beauty. And then when you do this, then you could actually mean what you say when you say beautiful and gracious. So Hillel doesn't want you to say the words if you don't mean it. He wants you to mean it. But first, he wants you to reach that conclusion, and you could reach that conclusion because Hillel says everyone has that beauty. Everyone has that beauty. The husband sees it, and it's up to everyone to see it as well. So again, Shammai is focusing. He puts priority on the initial perception. So you see something, you see someone, you give a quick, you get a quick, you get a quick idea of who they are, and you get a quick impression of who they are. And that's what's important to Shammai. So Shammai says, you see a person, give them a compliment, say something quickly, and make sure that what you're saying you actually mean and say that it's actually true. So only say the qualities and the beauty that you see and that everyone sees. But Hillel says, no, Hillel highlights the fact that we need to take the time and take a moment and explore the person, take a deeper look, and appreciate the person for who they are. So if you'd like, look back at your paper, look at the compliment or words of praise that you wrote for your friend or for your family member, and try to think, after understanding Hillel's point of view, that it's not just about a quick first impression, it's not just about what meets the eye at first glance, but we should actually think more about the person, explore who they are on a deeper level, get to know them, appreciate their talents and abilities on a deeper level. Would you write something differently? Would you say this compliment with these words of praise differently, or would you keep it the same? So if you're keeping it the same, then that's fantastic. That means that you already had Hillel's wisdom even before we saw it today. But if you wrote something more similar to Shammai, That's great as well. Shammai was a great sage. It's just another perspective. But the fact is that in most cases, when there's a disagreement between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel, the halachic ruling is like Hillel. Just a fun fact. Does anybody want to share what they wrote and if something changed? Otherwise, we'll keep moving. Okay, you don't have to.
I just
like
was,
you want to say something, Susan.
I just was thinking about somebody that I know that they're hardworking and loyal.
Okay, that's beautiful.
I also had loyal,
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
isn't it? That's why I bring it up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think
I
that
think you have to know someone well. I think you have to know someone well to know that they're loyal, right? So.
She's
Right.
hardworking also.
Yeah.
Well, we know it's not the same person.
I'm not so sure about that.
Could be.
Never know. Okay, so we're going to continue looking at another discussion between Hillel and Shammai, and it's going to be a similar idea, similar positions that they take, but we'll see how their perspective and their point of view is carried over from one discussion to another, even though they're completely unrelated. We talked a little bit about this last time, so this is a similar style learning, but I think that besides foreseeing how they were consistent in their way of thinking, I think it also makes their position more clear, more explained, and more appreciated. So this is another Talmudic discussion, and it is about something that we do after Shabbat every Saturday night. There is a tradition to have the Havdalah ceremony. What is the Havdalah ceremony? So it's a short ceremony which marks the transition from Shabbat to the weekdays. What do we do during the Havdalah ceremony? What does it consist of? So we make a blessing on a cup of wine. So similar to the Kiddush. Kiddush is when we begin Shabbos, and we mark Shabbat, the beginning of Shabbat, with a blessing on a cup of wine. After Shabbat, we do the same thing. We have a different blessing also with a cup of wine, but we also have two other items. We have a nice spice that we smell, to relax us. Shabbat is over, but it's okay. We'll make it through another week. It'll be a good week, hopefully. The energy of Shabbat will hopefully continue and give us, help us throughout the week. Aside from the spice, we also light a fire and to enjoy the lights. Now, what's the reason why we light a fire? I mean, there's a lot to discuss about the spice as well, but tonight I'd like to focus on the fire. What is the reason that we light this fire? So our sages tell us that when God created the worlds, he created the world with a great light. And the light was so bright, it was a physical light, and it was physically so bright that somehow you could see across the planet. You could see so far because of this great, powerful, and awesome light. So it was something very special, obviously. Now, when Adam and Eve sinned, God decided that they were no longer deserving of this light, and God decided to hide this great light and keep it hidden, until Mashiach comes. But as we all know, the sin occurred just at the end of the day on Friday. And it was just when Shabbat was beginning. Now, out of respect and because of the holiness of Shabbat, God decided to postpone hiding this great light until Shabbat is over. And so God didn't hide this light until the end of Shabbat. But when the sun started setting on Shabbat, on Saturday, it started to become dark for the first time, right? So before this, it's this bright light was just shining the whole time, and it was on Saturday evening that now it started to get dark for the first time, and Adam became very afraid. Paul, yeah,
Maybe you could ask the new Zoom user to turn off their microphone.
see if I can do that. Mute.
Okay.
I don't know if that worked or not.
I don't hear any.
I don't know who they are, so I don't know how to ask them.
Okay.
But I'm clicking mute. I don't know if it's working or not.
You can mute everybody. I mean, except for yourself. Maybe I don't know if that's the wise thing to do, actually. But
I think they could always unmute if they want to say something. Let me just see. I don't know why it's not working.
it's quiet now. Maybe.
Okay, it sounds pretty quiet to me as well. Okay. So it was on this first Shabbat since creation. Shabbat was nearing the end. The sun was starting to set, and it started to get dark for the first time. And Adam became very afraid. Imagine you're only used to light, and all of a sudden it becomes dark for the first time. So he became very afraid. So somehow he understood how to take two stones, and he struck the stones together, and he made a spark. He made a fire with that. What did Adam say or do when he created some light? So he praised God and he said a blessing, and it's the same blessing that we say every week on Saturday nights. Blessed are you, Lord our God, who creates the lights of fire. So of course Adam was very happy. It was complete darkness, and he found a way to create light. So it was a reason to give a blessing and say a praise to God and thank God for creating the possibility for this light, for this kind of fire. Also, we had the blessing of Adam and the praise that Adam gave to God as a thank you for the light that he was able to create on his own. Okay, so there is a small debate on the precise language that we should use when we say this blessing. Okay, and this is the text number 2 on our sheets, and it's quite short. I'll read it out loud. The house of Shammai say that the blessing over light concludes with the words, "Who created the light of the fire," while the house of Hillel say that the words are, "Who is creating the lights of the fire." The house of Shammai are of the opinion that there is only one light in the fire, while the house of Hillel are of the opinion that there are several. Okay, so you can see that the house of Shammai says light, and the house of Hillel says lights. Okay, so what's the difference? So somehow the house of Shammai says that there's only one light, and somehow the house of Hillel says that there are many lights. What does this mean? So Shammai would say that we look at we give priority to the initial perception of how things look and how things are. And when you give a quick look at a fire, what do you see? You see one color, you see one light. But the house of Hillel says, no, we need to take a deeper look. And when we look at something, we always have to explore it on a deeper level and always understand it better. And when you pay very close attention to a fire, you don't see just one color, but you see a few colors. You see the blue, you see the reddish, you see the yellowish. So they're actually different colors. So Hillel says we make the blessing and we say lights in the plural, because we're supposed to pay more attention to the details and see the various colors that are actually there. Okay, so that is the second debate and the second discussion that Shammai and Hillel have. The third one is a story, actually 2 stories that are both about the very great sages themselves, Shammai and Hillel. Not their houses of study, not their schools of thought, but they themselves. And you see this text, the third text on your sheets. And it says like this: our rabbis taught, a certain Gentile once came before Shammai and asked him, how many Torahs do you have? 2, he replied, the written Torah and the oral Torah. I believe you with respect to the written, but not with respect to the oral Torah. Convert me on condition that you teach me the written Torah only. So he, Shammai, berated him and sent him away disapprovingly. When he went before Hillel, he converted him. On the first day, he taught him Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled. The following day, he reversed them to him. So he basically went to the end of the alphabet and said, what was a Taf? He said, this is Aleph. What was a Shin? He said, this is a Bet. So he did it exactly the opposite. But yesterday, you did not teach them to me thus, he protested. Must you then not rely upon me? Then rely upon me with respect to the oral Torah too. Okay, so they had different approaches, Shammai and Hillel. When this person, this potential convert, came and said, please convert me on condition that I only believe in the written Torah, Shammai sent him away. He said, you're crazy. This is not Judaism. Hillel said, no, come, I'll show you. I'll teach you how it works. And what he did basically was show him how you cannot truly learn and understand the Torah without some type of guide, right? Who tells you that you're reading it correctly? Who tells you that you're putting the punctuation in the right places? Who tells you that you're putting the vowels in the right places? If you look into written Torah, you just see the letters. You don't see the sentences. You don't see vowels. And depending on where you start, where you finish, depending on how you read it with which vowels, things could have completely different meanings, believe it or not. So what Hillel did was, instead of sending him away, he showed him how you must believe in the oral Torah. Otherwise, there's no real way to study the Torah. Even if you look at an English translation of the Torah, that the translation could only be done properly, and it could only be done correctly if you understand how to read the Hebrew, right? So before you even start, there must be some type of guide, and this is, of course, the oral Torah. But you see two completely different styles. Then there's another story in the next paragraph. On another occasion, it happened that a Gentile came before Shammai and said to him, convert me on condition that you teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. Thereupon he repulsed him with the builder's cubit, which was in his hand. When he went before Hillel, he said to him, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is the whole Torah, while the rest is the commentary thereof. Go and learn it. Okay, so it's a very famous story in the Talmud. Shammai sent him away, and Shammai said, there's no way I can teach you the whole Torah while you stand on one foot. And Hillel said, love your fellow as yourself. Don't do something to someone if you wouldn't want it done to you. Okay, so what was now we need to sit back and analyze what is the difference, what is the underlying and the fundamental difference in the approach of Shammai and Hillel. So we will find their logic and the same position that they took in the two previous conversations and the two previous debates. And what we could say here for Shammai is exactly what we said before, that Shammai gives a general look and an overall understanding of the person. So he kind of sums up the person. Person comes to see him, he sums up the person and then responds to the person. So in this case, when this non-Jew came to see him, what he saw in general was a person who was not serious, right? You come in, you only want the written Torah, but you don't want the oral Torah. In Judaism, they go together. You can't separate them. So Shammai understood that this person was not serious. And again, in the next story, you want to convert, you want to study the whole Torah in just a few seconds in the time that you could stand on one foot. So Shammai looked at the person. He gave a look at the person. He summed him up, and he said to himself, "This person is not serious. He's not serious, so he sent him away. How does Hillel look at things? Hillel has a completely different way of looking at people, and Hillel has a completely different approach. And what he says is that you can't sum someone up so quickly. You can't just give a general look at the person and overall understanding and overall impression of who the person is. What you need to do is give a more take a moment, give a more detailed look, do a more careful examination of the person and of the situation that they're in, and who they are really, deeper inside. And what did Hillel see? What did Hillel see when he thought in this way and when he took this approach? So Hillel obviously was able to find a spark of sincerity, a spark of truth. So maybe this person, for whatever reason, he was saying whatever he was saying, but Hillel was able to look into the person, and he was able to find at least some small amount of seriousness, some measure of sincerity, and some spark of truth. And what Hillel understood was that this little bit of truth and this little bit of sincerity could have a tremendous impact on the person and kind of win him over and change his perspective. And that's why Hillel took him in, and that's why Hillel agreed first to study with him in the case of the two Torahs, and then to convert the person who was only willing to learn while standing on one foot. But what Hillel believed was that you find the detail, find some element of truth, and when you look deeper, you might find it. And if you do, for Hillel, that was enough. And because Hillel understood and he believed that could change over the person. So we mentioned before that the halachic ruling is almost always like Hillel, and in the and like the house of Hillel, their position. And so Hillel is, of course, we could learn something from both Shammai and Hillel, talking about honest praise, talking about recognizing people's qualities and saying things to them that resonate, saying things to them that they'll appreciate and that will actually make them feel good. But I think we can learn a lot, perhaps a lot more from Hillel and from the house of Hillel, because what he shows us is that we should look beneath the surface. So it's very easy to judge a person, and it's very easy to give a quick judgment and say, oh, this is the kind of person, this is who they are, this is my impression of them. And in whatever situation, if it's for a praise or a compliment, or it's for friendship and for getting along and for giving them an opportunity, whatever it might be, Hillel says, look beneath the surface. Try to find who they are really. What are their real qualities? What is their real beauty? And pay attention to that. Take a moment to pay attention to that, to focus on that. And that is what you should say. The person will also know that you mean it, because when it comes from the heart, it goes into the heart. And that is Hillel's position. Hillel's position is not to jump to conclusions, not to be quick to judge, but to get to know a person, to understand them, to appreciate them, and then to deal with them, to speak with them, and to treat them accordingly.